What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Black Menaces Podcast. I'm your host, Nate, and this is my other host.
Rachel Weaver. So glad to be back with you guys today again for the podcast.
Apparently, I'm also your hoe. So,
Yes, Nate, be a hoe.
I don't know. Can I be a hoe and also be married? I shouldn't. I mean, I could.
You can be a hoe for one person.
That's true. I'm a hoe for
Period.
my wife. I'm my wife's hoe.
Yes. Love to see it.
Oh man, we're gonna kick things off with a Menace moment, Menaces in history, whatever we call it.
Yes. So for our Menace moment, Menace in history today, I'm going to highlight Ella Baker. And if you haven't heard about her, we're going to educate you real quick. So Ella Baker was born in 1903, and she was really a big part of the civil rights movement, but she was kind of a behind-the-scenes organizer. And her career spanned over 5 decades during the movement. And something really interesting about her is she graduated valedictorian from her college, Shaw University in North Carolina in 1927. That's awesome. That's very impressive. I'm nowhere near that or at any point in my life. But in the 1930s, she joined the staff of the NAACP, but resigned in 1947 after becoming the national director for a few different branches because of the bureaucracy that she saw in the NAACP. So she was already on that. I'm not participating in that kind of crap. So then in 1957, she helped form the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which Martin Luther King Jr. became the first president of, and she served alongside him as the director of the conference. And then in 1916, she ended up leading the conference, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, to help form the Student Nonviolence Coordinating Committee, which participated in many nonviolent protests in the South during the Civil Rights Movement, which we all know as SNCC, which that's like their acronym version, which if you know anything about the Civil Rights Movement, you've heard that organization all over. She ended up dying in 1986 at the age of 83, and some even call her the mother of the Civil Rights Movement because she was involved with so much at so many different times in her life, and she was just very influential. And I'm pretty sure she was in New York at one point, in Harlem, and then she came down to the South, so she was all over. And I think it's really cool to highlight women in the civil rights movement because a lot of times their stories and they are pushed aside, and a lot of times the male leaders were great and did wonderful things, but a lot of times they're the only ones highlighted when we know there are women behind the scenes and everything. So love you, Ella Baker, and thank you.
Yeah, and that's actually that's why we decided to talk about it today, because you want to talk about what you were talking about yesterday. Was it you or was it Kylie who was talking about how, like, patriarchy in the civil rights movement, how, like, we know that somebody was keeping all them dudes fed.
Oh, that was, I said that. Yeah. Well, this past semester during starting in January, I started taking a class, a civil rights seminar that BYU offers. And as I was learning about the civil rights movement, I feel like I just thought, like, where are the women? Like, where are the women writing? I know that they're involved. Like, why are there so many men who are talked about? And I know that they did really important things, but I know there were women who also were just as important. I mean, they were in all the photos. And also, with these men traveling back and forth to different parts of the United States, who's watching their kids? Who is keeping these men fed as they move from place to place? Who are the people organizing during the Montgomery boycott? All of these things. I know that the men were speaking out a lot of these things, but the women knew the schedules. They knew who was doing what when, who needed to be where when. And so I personally, I always love when I get to learn about women in the movement because I know they were really the movers and the shakers on the ground, those grassroots movements that needed to happen to organize things with the church. We know the church was kept afloat by, the pastor, but also the women were the ones who were the backbone of a lot of congregations as well. So
I don't think it was the men who were organizing, those kids walking out of school.
No.
And wrangling them all up and protesting in the streets and
not
things
at
like
all.
that. Yeah, I had never, honestly, and it's sad, I had never really thought about that until recently. Like, why do we not talk about the women of the civil rights movement? And I had known a few stories, but yeah, we do need to talk more about. We need to talk more about Coretta Scott. We need to talk more about Ella Baker. We need to talk more about Claudette Colvin. Like, I think the only woman we ever really talk about is Rosa Parks. We don't actually talk about her. We just talk about what she did. So
yeah, and And how Black women have always been people who have gotten their education. They haven't let sexism stop them in that way. I mean, they have barriers, but they have always been the ones to speak up against it as well. Something that I think is really cool about Coretta Scott King. I heard her daughter Bernice King speak last month, and she said that without Coretta Scott King, there would be no MLK Jr. recognition. There would be no day for him. She's the one who fought in the government to have his holiday recognized on a federal level. She is the one who made his foundation be what it is, his legacy. His memory would not be, I mean, a lot of people knew about him, but where it is today and the recognition that he has, it wouldn't be the capacity, it wouldn't be this far without her, because she is the one who fought after he died to keep that legacy alive and his history pure.
There you go. And she also put up with a lot. And like, we know MLK wasn't perfect.
Nope.
He was a dog, to be honest. But
honestly, I was talking with my roommate about this last night. That I don't know if you know, but MLK cheated on his wife multiple times during those days he was traveling, and she had to come apart when I told her, Dominique. She was like, "What?" She fell back in her chair, and I was like, "Yes, I thought everyone knew this. Everyone knew MLK cheated on his wife, girl."
Yeah, and we paint this picture of. And that's another thing too, like in history, especially in predominantly white universities and institutions, we paint this idea that the civil rights was this rosy time where everything was just
really,
happy-go-lucky. And I understand the need to portray the positive image of Martin Luther King and the things that he did, but we also have to recognize the humanity there. I guess not to say that cheating is human, but just to say that he was a person, right? He's not some God figure that we need to put up there and say, oh, we need to do everything that this man did, because he did a lot of wonderful things. Yes, he did a lot of good things. But there were also a lot of people that were right there alongside him doing the same things, making the same things happen. It wasn't just Martin Luther King. It was Coretta Scott. It was Ella Baker. It was Malcolm X. It was John, what's the lawyer's name?
Lewis.
John Lewis. I'm sorry.
I love John Lewis.
Yeah. All of those people, doing so many of the same things. So, we just need to remember that these people are human and that we are the same as they are. We can do the same things. It doesn't take some special ability to be a menace. All you got to do is just be passionate and want to do something, right? That's how we got started.
Yep.
We just regular.
Now look at us.
Right.
On a podcast
all
talking to you.
Right. Now I got a podcast I got to deal with. I don't want a podcast.
Give the people what they want. Not just kidding.
For real. Catch me a couple weeks ago. I've been trying to eat this microphone, but
I'm dead.
now since I paid for it, it's all expensive and fancy. Yeah. Jumping into it, I guess we'll answer this question. It's been sitting in our inbox for a while, so we'll go ahead and answer it. Rachel, what's a good fake name for this person? We don't care about gender.
Dallin.
Dallin, I love it.
That's the most basic name in Utah.
Don't be calling names basic.
I'm sorry. I keep saying that. No, I'm not going to offend anyone. My name is basic, so I'm not upset about it. It's not offensive to me because my name is basic.
Just Rachel. Remember, guys, we choose to be offended.
People who are LDS, if you're listening, you know what that reference is for. Because people remember, if not LDS listeners.
I never remember how problematic. Okay, so basically, to explain that reference, inside joke, there is a church leader who gave a talk a long time, 10, 15 years ago, where basically he was talking about people who stopped associating themselves with the church because of something that happened that was offensive. And he said that basically we choose to be offended, right? Like being offended is a choice.
That sounds like you chose to be upset by segregation. That's what that sounds like to me. Like, huh?
Yeah. So basically, members of the church have weaponized that, and so when they'll say things, not everyone, but some people have weaponized it to where they'll say things that are very disrespectful, offensive, rude, racist, and then when people react to it, they'll say, "Oh, well, you choose to be offended,"
So people choose to, not go to church because people have said offensive comments to them, and they're like, "You're choosing to be offended."
Right, and it's like that's not how that works.
There's no accountability on your part.
Yeah, exactly. It takes all the accountability off of the person. It's like. Yeah, we could go into that a lot, but basically that's what we were saying. You choose to be offended, Yeah, you do, but no, that's not how that works. Okay. Anyway, this person, Dallin, says, "How do I handle a Republican family that often says very offensive remarks when discussing politics?" Quotes. These people have been my world for 26 years, and as I learn and lean further left, I'm seeing a side of my family I never noticed before. I'm so disappointed in them, but I don't want to cut them out. I try to speak up, but I'm still looked at as the kid of the family, so I am met with scoffs. I also have anxiety and can't handle conflict. I'm sure other people in our generation are dealing with this too. I guess I'm wondering your opinions on this situation as people of color. Am I doing enough to be anti-racist when I can't even stand up to my own family? Whew, that's a heavy one.
Mm-hmm.
And family is tough. It's tough because there's so much, like your identity is tied up in your family, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's who you grew up with. Those are the people that you know, the people that you're closest to, the people you're most afraid of losing. And it can be tough to reconcile when they have ideas or thought processes or mindsets or actions that don't go with what you believe. In some things that's okay to look past, but when it comes to just like basic human issues, that's where it starts to get tough, especially when those opinions are radicalized. I have some experience with this. My parents have become increasingly more conservative as they've gotten older. But in addition to that, they've also become like increasingly more, I don't know, like radical black, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Yeah,
You
which
know,
is
where like
if you don't know
there's
the black community, I feel like you won't know what we're talking about.
yeah, they've gone the
I know
way of,
exactly what you're talking
we'll just say that they've gone the way of YouTube. We'll just say that they've gone the way of YouTube.
I'm sorry, that makes me laugh every time you say that.
They are YouTubians. YouTubian blacks. And if you know, you know. If you don't know, then just you'll figure it out eventually. But a lot of the ideas that they have now, some of them are not bad, but a lot of them are a bit radical, a bit extreme, and just kind of go against some of the things that I believe. They are also pretty homophobic, to say the least. And when I left home, I was 17 when I came to college. I left home, and I had a lot of the same belief systems and ideas. Now they've gotten like more, they've kind of gone more down that road since I left. But coming out, I had to learn and kind of become my own person, right? Because I shared a lot of the same ideas that they did, and then once I kind of saw the way that things were in the world, I was like, well, hold on, this doesn't line up with what I was taught at home, and this doesn't make a lot of sense. Like this doesn't line up with what I'm saying. This gay person, I was taught that hey, this person chose to be this way, and that this is a mental illness, and that I should avoid these people. And then I like actually interacted with members of the LGBT community, and I'm like, no, this is a person, and this is something that they didn't choose. This is just who they are, and why do I care so much about that, right? And so I had to realize, no, I need to treat this person like a person. And so my journey in becoming an ally in that way, and becoming a feminist, right? Because I came out, I was mad Hotep, just.
Explain Hotep to people who are not black.
we giving you all the terminology today. So Hotep.
I can't. I laugh at Hotep.
Man, I remember the first time I got called Hotep. I was so upset.
Wait, who called you a Hotep?
Melody Jackson.
I believe she was. That's exactly why I thought called you a Hotep.
I absolutely
That's
deserved
exactly
it.
why I thought called you a Hotep.
But I was so
Melody
offended.
is a black student who graduated in 2018.
My fragile male feelings were hurt. You calling me fake? I'm not fake. These women, bro, they always try to like be. I was like, I was trifling.
That's struggling.
Yeah. So anyway, Hotep, basically it's like it's a predominantly black term.
Yeah.
For...
Let's go to Urban Dictionary. I'm gonna look it up.
You know what? Let's do that.
I'm gonna look up Hotep because I feel like
let me pull it up right here.
It's the best.
Hotep Urban Dictionary. What we got? Okay. Oh no. So let's see. Hotep. One of the,
okay. So this is good.
You got the same one I do?
One of them.
You want to read it?
Okay. This is Urban Dictionary, but I feel like it captures it well.
Uh-huh.
It says one of them super woke niggas who can't go more than a few seconds without bringing up a conspiracy theory about, air quote, the white man, generally seen wearing African clothing and pretends to be wise and peaceful, yet is high-key anti-Semitic AF, Arguing and debating with the Hotep is nearly impossible due to the constant vague references about the white man that never have anything to do with the topic of effing conversation.
Yeah, so hold on, we got to read the example. Hold on. Okay.
Oh, okay.
You want to be the me and I'll be the Hotep?
Yeah.
Draw my former.
Okay. Me. My back hurts a little.
See, that's because the white man got you, and people who look like you, working like a slave, our ancestors, while they get all the money. It's modern day slavery. That's why your back hurt.
And I sit and look at this person like, or I just slept wrong.
No, see, the reason you slept wrong was because the white man
built your bed.
And
the white man, they built the bed for the white. They built it for the white man only, and you're like, whoa. And Hotep, when someone calls you Hotep, it's also because normally it's normally a black man. I've never described a black woman as a Hotep. They also refuse to recognize their misogyny and how patriarchy affects the black community, or homophobia affects the black community. Like, they only focus on like the black issues, but it's like a black male perspective only. Yeah.
So when I say the way of YouTube, it's in that same strain, right? They've kind of gone this way.
Extreme.
My uncle is also this way. Bless his heart. He once got on my Facebook like a few years ago. He actually blocked me on Facebook because I wasn't black enough.
You weren't black enough?
Yeah, he's like,
bro, I hate when black people act like that.
I was like, I was joking with him. I was like, Uncle, I'm woke. He's like, nah, nephew, you need to be aware. Being woke is not enough. And then he blocked me. Okay.
I'm sorry. This is not making fun of these people. We're laughing because it's ridiculous, and there's nothing else. Like, you really can't talk with these people, and it's hard to discuss with them. Yeah. And personally, me, Hotep men, I don't interact with. Hotep black men, no, literally not, because I have to be with the feminists.
Very misogynoir, as they say. But
okay, sorry. Back to you and your Hotep days.
Oh yeah, we went way off. Yeah, so anyway, back in my Hotep days, I wasn't like extreme, but I was out here wearing shirts that said, well, we're not gonna get into that, but yeah, I was corny basically. This is a very corny time of life for me. But yeah, anyway, I had to come out and I had to learn how things were. I had to become more of an ally. I had to become more of a feminist, and I'm still learning, right? There's still things that I don't think about on a regular basis just because of my privilege as a male, things like that I still got to figure out and learn. But the difference between me then and me now is that I'm like trying to learn, right? Then I was like so set. I was like, no, this is how things are, and this is the way that I should think. But I'm learning more to be more flexible in my thinking. But anyway, getting back to this question, as I learn more about who I was and how the world is and how people are, I kind of distance myself from my family's way of thinking, from my parents' way of thinking. And it's tough to try and talk with your family about this because that's your family, And so I tried to have these conversations. They didn't go over very well. To be perfectly honest, due to other circumstances, which we will not talk about at this time, I don't talk with my father anymore, and he's kind of like the ringleader of the whole. I still talk with my mom a little bit, and every once in a while when we're talking, she'll get on some tangent about the white man or the government or something like that. And some of the things I agree with, some of them I think are not true. But I always find myself not really talking about it or not really like trying to address those issues because I feel in my head it's just better to just let it go, right? To just kind of like maintain that relationship with my mother rather than try and like argue a point. And so I guess, there are other ways to be anti-racist. There are other ways to be feminist. There are other ways to be an ally than, dealing with your family. Man, I don't know. This is a tough question because it's like I get the feeling of like feeling like you're kind of a hypocrite, but then also not wanting to end that relationship with your family. And so I guess you just kind of have to weigh how serious it is, right? Yeah. That's your family. If the things that they are doing or saying or believing are affecting other people, then it might be time to have that conversation. But if it's just relatively harmless, then you just kind of have to weigh it. I know for me, I did address some things with my father, and that's part of the reason that we no longer speak is because I did address some of those things. But those were things that were, legitimately hurting other people, right? The things that he was doing were affecting other people in my life, and so I had to address that. With my mother, the things that she says are, they can be interesting or incorrect, but they're not necessarily hurting anyone. Um, and so, I kind of just pick and choose my battles, and that's with being an anti-racist or just an ally in general. You don't have to fight every single battle. You do have to kind of pick your battles, decide which ones are worth fighting and which ones are worth devoting your energy to. And so, there are a lot of things that I do in my personal life and, in my social life that I devote my energy to that are helping to fight against certain mentalities, certain mindsets, certain actions. Being a part of the Black Menaces is one of the ways that I'm doing that. And, my family knows where I stand on certain things. And that's just that. We just disagree and we just kind of choose not to talk about it. So, as long as you're true to yourself, you know where you stand, your family knows where you stand, then you can just leave it at that, I would say. But what do you got to add to that, Richard?
I think for me, as you've talked, I actually realized that there's more that I actually have gotten into disagreements with my family about. They're not really racial things, but other things such as patriarchy, sexism, the way that, women's roles, which my family, older Black people are still pretty traditional and conservative in that way. And when it comes to issues with the queer community, family is also pretty conservative about that. And also issues and interpretations of the gospel and the way my family all has different interpretations of the way they believe the gospel should be lived. And if certain people choose to follow certain commandments or don't, that interpretation within my family has been, has caused contention. And so really just dealing with difference of opinions almost. But to me, certain things aren't just difference of opinions. It's almost like this is how I view humanity, and this is like my morals, right? Because I think that's what you're asking here. This isn't just like, oh, I think blue is better than pink, and we're just disagree about that. No, you don't see a Black person's humanity. You don't see your own racism, and I understand how frustrating that can be on your end, particularly with my family, with my mother. Sometimes it's so difficult to have conversations about gender with her because she just believes things about women and men and places and things I just don't agree with that I think are extremely problematic, and it's very frustrating. But after getting in many arguments with her and different family members about issues in the queer community, I have just decided kind of like, Nate, what are my battles? What do I really, is this point of ending a relationship? No. Do I think that this is problematic? Yes. Am I going to just lead with what I believe? Yes. I think because I've kind of believed this way since I was like probably like 15. So I've been getting in fights for the past, how old am I now? 23, 8 years with my family about different liberal topics and ideas. And I think now I've gotten to the point where I just live my life the way I want to live it. And I don't really care if my family agrees or disagrees with what I believe. And if they have questions about it, they know they can ask me. And if something comes up, I'm going to defend any community that I feel like needs defending. I'm not going to, if my mom makes a homophobic comment, I'm going to say that's not okay to say. And if it leads to a discussion or argument, I try to stray away from the argument side. But that's my stance, right? Like, I'm not going to talk about it actively with you. But if you make a comment that is against a marginalized community and is harmful, I'm going to let you know that that's harmful. And then I might not take it further with them, right? But I am going to stand up. And I think you just have to pick your boundary. That's my boundary. Say something that's harmful, I'm going to let you know it's harmful. I'm not going to go further. And you kind of just have to pick and let them know, I'm not going to discuss this with you anymore because you kind of want to say with what you're thinking. And I'm just letting you know that what you're saying isn't okay. And people will see the error in their ways, and they will change eventually, hopefully. I had a conversation with my brother a year ago about gay people. I'm not going to expose what he said. That's not my right. But he said things that I thought just were not okay, and that I think he didn't believe were harmful, but I did. And, a couple weeks ago, he came to me apologizing. And I don't say that to say that I was better than him at the time or he was worse, but I let it go and I didn't talk about it with him for a long time but he's had time to change, and he really he's like, wow, why did I think that way? That was really wrong of me. It took a whole year, but hey, he's there, right? And that's what we want at the end of the day, is for everyone to be more understanding and accepting. And if that means you don't talk about it for a year, that means you don't talk about it for a year. And you're just going to have to live your life the way you want to. And your family will they'll do one of two things. They'll either just not talk to you, and you might get to the point like Nate where you're not speaking with a family member, or they're going to accept it. And most of the times they're going to accept it and be okay with it. And if they judge you, at the end of the day, you just kind of got to be cool with what you think. If they think that you're some liberal, whatever, or whatever a label they try to associate with who you are, you just have to pretty much like just take it and realize it's not personal. And a lot of it more has to do with the way they've been socialized as well. And know that you're doing the right thing at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. That's what I do. I believe that I know if I'm not gonna not say what I want to say or not believe what I want to believe because of my family, because that doesn't feel right to me. And so when I know that I can go to sleep knowing I'm doing what I believe is right, that makes me feel a lot better.
Amen to that. Yeah. Also, the older people get, the harder it is for them to change.
100%.
That's what I've noticed.
Well, I think there's like this idea that like after 25, it's kind of hard. Like when after your brain is fully developed, mm-hmm. which at 25, I think for most people, it's hard to change certain core behaviors and beliefs.
Yeah, I think it does get harder, but also you can still choose to change.
This is true.
Same way you can choose to be offended, you can choose to change. And I think just that after a certain point, it becomes much harder to change unless you have some kind of like life-altering something happen to you that like really forces you to switch your mindset. And
that's why we love all these biracial babies being born into these person's
For real, the struggle is real.
That helped them a lot. That's sad, but for people who have a son or daughter who's gay or bisexual,
yeah, it'd be tough. But another thing I would recommend is if you don't already have a therapist, then I would recommend that you get one and talk to them about it. That's one of the things that helped me reconcile my beliefs and my feelings with the feelings of my family or my parents specifically. All my siblings are great, but my parents specifically. When I went and talked to my therapist, he told, and I got very lucky. It was so random. I got a black male therapist who had also been a member of the LDS church, but then like stopped going to the LDS church. It was random, but he was able to understand a lot of the things that I was talking about and where I was coming from on him. But one of the things that he helped me realize was that I felt invalidated by my family's beliefs because the things that I believed and the things that I felt were so central to who I am were things that they disagreed with, and it felt invalidating. And so what he helped me realize is that you don't need to feel invalidated by that. They're going to believe how they believe. They're not going to change. They're going to continue believing those things. And you just need to become your own person and not worry so much about what they think and how it's affecting you. Just focus on who you are, what you believe, and live your life accordingly. And so being able to kind of have that breakthrough in therapy was also a big help. Just talking about those feelings and kind of being able to articulate what they were was monumental. So I would get a therapist if you haven't done that already.
Amen.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I got. You got anything to add?
Nope, I think we hit it all, and it's really tough. And family's hard, and realizing you're different than the way your parents are is also hard in a lot of ways. But that's part of growing up. I think part of this isn't like kind of what Nate was saying. It's not just a racial issue. Yes, that's bad, but also this is also a bigger part of life as well. That's just like a hard lesson for everyone. But racially, it's another layer, when it's dealing with other things like that. So,
yes, indeed.
Ooh, that's like my biggest fear is that I will date a white man whose family is like that. I mean, I was dating a black man, and his family thought that I was too. They didn't say this, but I think they thought I was too outspoken. I was too opinionated. And that's hard too, right? Because I'm like, dang, we're both black. Like, what do you mean? And they were okay with, Yeah, I think they didn't say this directly, but the issues they had expressed about me, it was centered around, I think they just thought I was too opinionated. So someone always going to have an issue.
I'll tell you what, if you got an experience with that, if you dating somebody whose family is mad crazy or racist or Hotep, then email us. We want to hear about it.
Yes, we
But
should do a
also,
whole
yeah,
podcast episode about
we
that.
should. We could do a podcast on dating. That'd be fun.
Yeah, because I could go off about my past situation.
Yeah.
We won't get
Well,
into details
yeah,
today.
be sure to email us at Black Menaces Podcast at gmail.com. Send in your Menace moments, send in your questions, and be sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Black Menaces. And be sure to subscribe to us on Patreon at the Menace Society.
Thank you guys for tuning in again, and don't forget to always be a menace. And we're looking
to be a menace.
Choose. Yes, and we're looking forward to hearing about the ways you guys are being a menace in the emails.
All right. We'll catch y'all later. Outro music fading away.